Is it a good idea to pair the RTX 4070 Super with a 1440p monitor to play the latest games in the last quarter of 2024? Or do you need a more powerful GPU to do that? Let's find out. I'm using the MSI Ventus 2X RTX 4070 Super paired with the i7-14700KF CPU as part of the CyberPower pre-built PC powered by MSI. If you are interested in any of the products featured in this video, you can find them at the links in the description below. Let's start with the most recent release, God of War Ragnarok. We are using native 1440p, DLAA, and the graphics preset is absolutely maxed out, Ultra. I'm happy to report that even at native resolution we are experiencing above 100 FPS pretty much at all times. But there are dips below 100, and surely there will be other locations in the game that are more GPU demanding, so it's a good thing that we have a lot of GPU power left over to handle those kind of scenarios. That does make me wonder, can we actually achieve a consistent 120 FPS experience if we use DLSS set to quality? Effectively, we are upscaling 952p to 1440p. Oh, and that is absolutely yes. Or maybe no. There's still some scenes in the game where FPS drops below 120. Yeah, I think that has something to do with optimization of the game. The GPU clearly can deliver above 120 FPS. Either way, this gives us an even higher headroom to handle those difficult to render scenes in the game, if there are any, further down the storyline. Or we can use DLSS to achieve higher power efficiency, because right now the GPU is consuming 187 watts, so close to 190. But watch what happens if we lock FPS at 120. Yeah, in this particular scene, now we are consuming 164 watts of power, but if we start moving around, yeah, 150, 160, nice. So that's 20 plus watts less. And we still have that extra smooth 120 FPS experience. Let's improve image fluidity even further by using frame generation, and we're going to use DLSS and not AMD's FSR. DLSS stays on quality. Yeah, we are getting higher FPS. Let's see. We're getting dips below 120 over here. Right, so that fixed that issue. No more dips below 120. However, that frame rate graph is not as flat as it was when we were using just resolution upscaling without the frame generation. Yeah, so that's unfortunate that we're not getting smooth performance. And I can actually feel that when I move around. Yes, this is not as smooth. So in this particular game, I think that frame generation is just not worth it. If you need extra frames, then just use resolution upscaling to achieve that. Maybe the game developers will patch it later on, but as it stands right now, yeah, it's not a good experience playing with frame generation enabled. And it's not like you need it, because take a look at this. We are running DLSS quality and still getting well above 120 FPS. Next up is Space Marine 2. We are at native 1440p resolution and graphics quality is maxed out. Everything is maxed out, including cloth simulation. In scenes where there is no action, we're getting above 80 FPS, but let's jump into a fight and see how that will go. Oh yes, 70, 68, 65 FPS. So yeah, once we are encountering enemies, FPS drops, and the bigger the horde, the lower the FPS. But that's actually not GPU's fault, because it is fully loaded it is optimization problem, because CPU i7-14700KF is a pretty darn fast CPU, and it is not anywhere near fully loaded, not even 50%. There's still room for game optimization improvements to ensure that we are not experiencing those frame rate drops, because one moment you're getting 80 FPS and then a bunch of enemies show up and FPS drops to 60 or even below that sometimes. That is not a good thing. Let's see how the game will do if we enable DLSS quality mode. Oh, nice. 120 plus FPS in scenes with no fighting. And here are the enemies. Let's go. Will the FPS still be dropping to around 60-ish? Let's see. Let's find a bigger horde. Let's go. Yes. No, it appears that the performance has stabilized and we are not getting those horrible dips to around 60-ish. So you can kind of get rid of those frame drops. I mean, the FPS still drops by a lot, but at least we're staying well above 60. Oh yes, here we go. There's a lot of enemies over here. Let's aggro them all and see what happens. Oh, look at that, 78 FPS. Yeah, so the more enemies you see on the screen, the worse it gets. But still, we're not dropping below 60 yet. So the best thing you can do in this game is just get as much FPS as possible to ensure that you're staying above 60 at all times. It looks like you need to have at least 40 FPS higher in normal scenes, then you will stay above 60 at all times. Let's give this GPU something a bit more difficult to render. This is Black Myth Wukong. We are at native 1440p, no ray tracing for now, but we'll check it out a little bit later in the video. And let's use very high graphics preset. Yeah, you see what I mean by more difficult? This game, even though very high graphics preset is not the highest available, yeah, still, we're not getting 60 plus FPS at 1440p. It's not a terrible experience, it's still 50 plus, but in such a fast-paced game where dodging is everything, you definitely want 60 plus. I think we might be able to achieve that by using DLSS resolution upscaling and setting it to 67%, which is equal to DLSS quality mode. And just like that, we are now getting well above 60 FPS. In these scenes, oh, 64. Even near the water, we're still getting above 60 FPS. There's a lot of vegetation in this scene. And still above 60, 65, 64. Yeah, because this game is made in Unreal Engine 5, you will see those stutters from time to time. There's just no way around it. To make sure that they're not as bad, you need a powerful CPU. But apart from that, there's nothing you can do to improve that. A more powerful GPU will not help. Let's enable frame generation on top of DLSS resolution upscaling. Oh, now we're getting 100 plus FPS in some scenes. Nice. Oh, 90 plus in others. That's quite a lot of frames generated. The image is definitely more fluid, but is it better than playing just using resolution upscaling and 60 plus FPS? I'm not too sure. I mean, at this point it's just personal preference. I think that the image quality looks good either way, so I would recommend playing around with it, trying it out, and see what you like best. Let's disable frame generation and enable full ray tracing set to very high. The game looks noticeably nicer with ray tracing enabled, especially on very high, which means that we have all the light features as well as reflections, which is actually my favorite part. Reflections. Ray traced reflections is what I love the most. Because when you look at water, it just looks much more natural than what we've had previously without ray tracing enabled. But it does require a lot of GPU power to process ray tracing. As you can see, we are no longer experiencing 60 plus FPS, it is actually 40 plus now, even though we are using DLSS set to quality. Although I must say that this is still a much better experience that we've had with the RX 7900 XTX. In the same scenario, yeah, it was absolutely unplayable, while this is actually playable. So if you want to experience ray tracing in 2024, then definitely go for an NVIDIA graphics card. Right now we are using almost 9 GB of video memory, which means that we have about 3 GB left to work with. If we want to enable frame generation, for example, we still can. So let's do that and see how that will feel. In terms of image fluidity, it is nice now. Have a look at that, 69 FPS. Very nice actually. But in terms of latency, it's not as good. If you want to dodge precisely every time, having 40 plus base FPS is okay, but it's not ideal. Because in this game, timing your dodges is everything. And if there is a lot of latency in the controls, then you're not going to have a good time in this game. But I'm glad to see that it is actually possible to achieve an impressive visual fidelity with ray tracing enabled on the highest preset, and the game is still playable. However, let's see if we can achieve 60 plus FPS without the help of frame generation. Let's set DLSS to balanced mode, which is 58%. And no, it is not possible. Unfortunately, even on DLSS balanced, we're still not anywhere near 60 FPS. That just shows that you do really need more ray tracing cores which come on higher tier GPUs to actually enjoy ray tracing properly. Because at 1440p, using DLSS balanced mode is already starting to, degrade some of those finer details in the foliage and grass and character's fur. So I would not recommend going to performance mode. But just for the sake of curiosity, let's enable performance mode, which is 50%. And that actually gets us very close to a consistent 60 plus FPS, but there are still drops to 56, 58 from time to time, depending on the scene. And the visuals are definitely not worth it. I mean, as I said, you're losing a lot of finer details in the grass, and as well as character's fur is now looking pixelated. That is not nice. Overall, the 4070 Super is still a brilliant choice for 1440p gaming. I recommend it. Actually, this is the only graphics card I recommend for 1440p gaming. Forget about AMD graphics cards because FSR is unfortunately not as good as DLSS. It has a long way to go. I really wish that AMD would step up their game with resolution upscaling quality. But until that happens, I will continue recommending NVIDIA graphics cards only. Because like it or not, even at 1440p, you will have to use resolution upscaling to boost performance if you want to play the most demanding games. at the highest graphics quality. In 2 out of the 3 latest games we had to use DLSS resolution upscaling to get a good experience at 60 plus FPS, and on the God of War Ragnarok was running absolutely brilliantly without any resolution upscaling. However, even in God of War it is worth using resolution upscaling because you can uplift your experience to 120 FPS instead of standard 60 plus. If you're thinking about buying the 4070 Super, then go for it, because I don't think you will regret it. It is a good card. This is actually my main GPU. I'm using it to play games on a 4K screen, and I'm still enjoying it, so I'm pretty sure that you will enjoy it at 1440p as well. And if you're interested in any of the products featured in this video, you can buy them on Amazon at the links in the description below. Don't forget to give this video a like if you enjoyed it to reward my work, that helps out a lot, and subscribe for more if you haven't already. It was I, Vadim. Until next time.